Well, welcome everyone to the John Gardina classroom. This is my first international guest. He resides from the United Kingdom, east of London. His name is Kevin Rose. He lives with his wife in just beautiful farm country with all the pictures that I've seen on Strava of him running. He is a ultra runner. He is definitely a man of now discipline. He is just somebody now that I've met for the past, I'd say 2 months now, just someone who you fall in love with because of who he is and his personality and persistence of sharpening his blade to become a better person. So I will let Kevin talk about his upbringing in the UK as a little boy and his family dynamics, and we'll work right into his current point and what he's doing in life now. So Kevin, thank you so much for being on today.
Hi, John. Yeah, no, thank you, John. Thanks for that introduction. I really do appreciate being on the podcast. So thank you for that. A little bit about my upbringing. And a little bit about me. I'm 55 years old, and I was pretty much born and raised in a small village in Kent in the UK, just about 40 miles east of London. And there was me. It's just me and my brother, and obviously my mother and father. My father, during my upbringing, my dad worked long hours. He worked in the farm and in that type of environment. So my dad really wasn't around much during my upbringing, and it was really down to my mum. And so I had a great upbringing with me and my brother, and I was very, very lucky and very, very fortunate. From a religious perspective, I didn't have any sort of religious upbringing. I wasn't. Neither of my parents were religious. My mum did find Jehovah later in life, and become religious, from around about her 30s onwards. But that was when I was in my teens. So, and that was never sort of like forced upon me. So I never had a religious upbringing at all. But I had a very, very good upbringing. So I've always felt myself as very, very lucky. And I think moving it forward, I think I left home in my early 20s, and I was fortunate enough to be able to go and buy, my first property, and spent the next 10 years probably doing what most young people do. I was single. My nature. And I've always been very, 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 very much an all-in type of person. If I'm going to do something, I'll always be all in, and that's in any aspect of life, whether that be, eating, drinking, sport, anything I do, I will tend to do to excess, and that included spending money as well. So I had what I considered at the time a very good 10 years, sort of from 20 to 30.
What did Kevin? What did you do during that time? What was your occupation?
I've been working pretty much for the same company for the last 30 plus years. The company's changed names over the times, and I did move away and I've gone back. But I've been pretty much involved. Started off in warehousing, in supply chain. Started off as picker packer, and ended up managing the warehouse. And in the last 10 years, I'm on the same environment, but I've moved away from warehousing, supply chain, and gone into health and safety management. So once again, I was always fully engrossed in the career aspects of what I wanted to do, and knew where I wanted to go, and was very, very driven as to what I wanted to do and how, and I've genuinely achieved everything I wanted to achieve within, the business environment, so. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought a little bit there.
I think Kevin, one of the things that that I would like to know is, you say you're all in, you're probably working your butt off in your 20s. You already bought a property. Were you just living for the world? Were you just living for your success? What were you living for during your 20s?
It was, I think for me, I was just driven by work, earning money. I had the ability to obviously everybody offers you money at that time. You get credit cards, and so I sort of like started to spiral out of control, really, to be quite honest. Because I wanted, so I was still working, I was still building my career, and I was being able to do that. But then also, that's where I started, drinking a lot. So I was drinking and partying and doing all the things that young men do. And so I lived life to excess. And it did, I got, it did get me to a point to my early 30s when that's when I met my wife Sharon, who I haven't spoken about yet. But and that was a pivotal moment for me in my life. Meeting Sharon 20 years ago. We got together on the 26th of December 2002, and that was our first date on Boxing Day. And it changed my life. At that point, I'd gotten to a pretty serious state of affairs from a personal point of view. Financially, I was a mess, and I was in debt, and I wasn't in a good position, John, to be quite honest. I wasn't in a good position in life, and there I was, early 30s, and just met the love of my life. And I nearly lost all of that because of the position that I put myself in. But she stuck by me, and we've built, I've developed a beautiful relationship now over the last 20 years with Sharon. She's always stuck with me. She's stuck with me through thick and thin, and we've had some difficult times during them 20 years. But I think, as of today, we're in the best position that we've ever been. We've never been blessed with children. I think it was a little bit too late in life when we got together, but apart from that, she's been my rock. She is my rock. And I dread to think where I would have gone if I hadn't met Sharon, during that time in my life. It was getting to a point where I didn't know what to do, and I don't know where it would have gone, John, to be quite honest. So I'm very thankful, that the Lord brought Sharon into my life at that time.
You took the words right out of my mouth. That sometimes when we don't even think about it, when we're in our daily operations of just lust or looking at the material success, or or drinking or addiction, okay, we need a savior, and God literally will open doors for you, and whether or not you accept those offerings, that's up to you. And it sounds like your wife came in the perfect time where you could have went really, really dark, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. I was teetering on a knife edge, I think, at that point. Yeah.
So when she came in, she became a stable, force in your life with support and love. And what quality or qualities did she have that you just love about her then and now?
I think she just brings me back down to earth.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's, I tend to, I think I tend to just get all in on all the aspects of life, and just focus in on that one specific area, and don't really look at the bigger picture and how it's going to affect me and the people around me. And and Sharon knows that I need to go off and do that, but she knows how to support me and encourage me to do what I need to do to fulfill that need. But then also making sure that I'm not going off the rails, I'm not affecting other people. And it's and I need that in my life. Even today, I still need that in my life. I need that to that I don't know, that sensible approach, I suppose, sensible outlook, for somebody to be able to to tell me when to back off a little bit, I suppose. And she and I think the point is, she's always there to say the right things and support me in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably don't tell her that enough. I think when I reflect, and I think this is the sort of things that I've been thinking about in the last 6 months or so. And I think the experience I've been through, and what I'll talk about in a while, but that's only helped me to open up and be more honest with my feelings and the impact that Sharon has on my life.
Yeah. You know, it's something said for a strong partner in a relationship. And I don't think I know that's the way God designed it, because he knew you couldn't do it alone. And we always need someone with us to support us on a daily basis. Because if I didn't meet my wife, there's no way that I would have, one, the family that I have today that's so loved and nurtured. And then secondly, the support that she gives me each day to allow me to have my independence to do the things that I love to do, which is sharing, the gospel with people, which is, sharing time with others through the program that you did with me, and also in my endeavors of writing and running and all these different aspects of my life. And that's just a selfless individual. And it sounds like Sharon's the same way as Megan, is that we have wives who are just the rock. Like they're not going to waver when us males, we do waver, right? And if we didn't have them keeping us in line, my life for sure, without a doubt, would be completely different. And I wouldn't have the success I have today without her by my side. And I know that sounds the same to you, Kevin.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, John, without a doubt. And so exactly right.
So let's talk about, I know that recent events had taken place with your brother, and, I have two brothers, and, I don't know this story. All I know is something happened, and he's not with us anymore. But can you, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about that story of how close you were with your brother and what kind of happened.
Yeah, me and my brother, obviously, my brother moved away. He got married and he moved away to Eastbourne, to the coast, so the southeast coast in Kent. So he wasn't a million miles away, but it's 2 or 3 hours, I suppose. So I did sort of like lose touch with my brother over the years, and I didn't really see much of him for a 10-year period. I think during that time, and he obviously got on with his life. He got married, he got divorced, he had a couple of kids, and we met up a few family events, and so I lost touch a bit with my brother. But then, as it come, well, little did we know, my mum actually passed away in 2016, so it's 8 years ago this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just before then, and once again, when I look back, I think it was the Lord sort of like working and doing what he needed to do, because we'd lost touch and we hadn't been together as a family for a long time, for a good 10-year period. And I'm sure for a mother that was hard for her to deal with. Yeah. And so we got back together, and I always remember the day that we went for a family meal in a local restaurant, and we was all there together, and it'd been the first time we'd all been together as a family for about good 10 years or more. And to see the delight on my mother's face, I'll never forget that. You could tell that she was so happy and content that we was back together as a family. And it wasn't long after that sadly she did pass away. I think that was probably 2015, and it was the following year, early 2016, when she passed away. But then I did keep in touch with my brother a bit closely after that. So we was never, very, very close, but I still kept in touch with him. And it was, my brother was, once he got divorced and he was living alone. And I think, we were very similar. And once again, my brother was very much all in, and, he chose the wrong path, I think with regards to, his lifestyle, and he developed diabetes, and then in the last sort of like 6 months, he was starting to struggle mentally, and we was having to go and support him and go to Eastbourne and try and support him in his struggles. He was, it was a very difficult time, because I couldn't really support him how I wanted to support him, and I do remember it quite clearly one time when he'd been taken to hospital, and most of the time it's because due to him not taking his medication to control his diabetes, and then he'd end up in hospital, and then he'd find him wandering the streets and stuff like that. And we had to go down and take him out of hospital and take him back to his flat. And, I got the opportunity to speak to him and talk to him. And he was obviously struggling with life and everything that was going on. He'd just lost his business. And yet he was in a dark place. And I was trying to support him and trying to be there for him. But, yeah, it was a difficult time. And I couldn't be there as much as I wanted to be. And I think it was a week after that he actually passed away on a Friday night. He went into ketosis and passed away, and because no one found him, basically. They went into a diabetic coma and didn't never come out of it. And he was only about 54 at the time, so he was a couple of years older than me. And that was really difficult for me at the time. I think it always affected me more than I thought it would. I don't know. I think I felt a bit guilty afterwards. I wasn't there enough for him. I didn't do enough at the time. In some ways, my mother passing couple of years before, or 3 years before, it was, because I would have hated for my mother to have seen that, to go through that experience, So in some ways that was a blessing, but I don't know. So it was a time where I struggled. I struggled to deal with that.
What year was it? 2019 that he passed away?
Yeah, 2019. Yeah, June 2019. My brother passed away. Yeah.
So Kevin, if I can try to paint a picture the best I can of what you said. So he got divorced, he lost his business, and it kind of was a spiral with his mental health, physical health from there, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah,
being in education, even though the kids that I serve are not adults, but I tell you what, we all need to be better supporters of those who are struggling with their mental health. And the reason why I say that is, if you're listening, there's someone out there probably in your life who needs a phone call right now, who just needs that support. And you may just think about them for a second. And my advice to you right now is just take action, either while you're listening to this or right after this episode's over. Take action, call or text that person, check in on them, because you may have an impact where you can change their life to where they feel valued again. And maybe you can get them help. There's some cases obviously it sounds like your brother, that were very severe, and he was isolated. And when people are alone, that's when, me personally, I think that's when the devil works his best, is when he's just constantly attacking you, giving you doubt, playing mind games, and then just making you feel like you're not valued. And that's the opposite of what God wants for you. So, and we'll talk about, accountability and how important that is to have a partner in your life, whether a spouse or, a fellowship of men and women in your life. So go ahead, continue, Kevin, about your brother.
Yeah. So yeah. That was, I think that was the story with my brother, really, to be quite honest.
And what for you said you had a little bit of guilt, right, about not being there for him, and what you said earlier, whether it was, I think, in this call or previously in our conversations, just that something happened in your life where you changed. And was it your brother's death, or was it something else?
Well, I think it was around that time when my brother died in 2019. I was at a point in my life when my life had changed quite significantly as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to understand the sort of like the story, I think I need to update you there, because so my brother passed away in 2019. I think from if I just go step back a little bit,
mm-hmm.
It was in 2017 that I got to a point in my own life where once again I think even though bringing Sharon into my life sorted out so many areas for me, I still had some issues. And when I look back now, even though I didn't recognize the issues then, I think, when I look back, I did have some, drinking, dependency,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. I was drinking every day. I was not to excess, but I was drinking every day, and there wasn't very many days I didn't go without a drink. And and also there was a pivotal moment for me in 2017, an early part when we went to a family wedding in Cyprus. And it was one of them times when you come back from the wedding and you look at the family photos, and I was 16 stone, and for a guy who's only 5'6", that's I was a big guy, and I didn't like the pictures. So it was at that point I decided to change my lifestyle, and I didn't decide to stop drinking at that point, but I decided I was going to look at the food and look at introduce the gym into my life. I'd always played a bit of sport and stuff like that, but I always ate and drank too much, and that was the problem. I like to play sport, but I still like to do the other things to excess as well.
Yeah.
And that didn't quite work. So it was that time when, I decided to change my own lifestyle. And then it was a little bit later on as well in that year, in October 2017, that I got to a point where, and I didn't recognize it at the time, John, to be honest. I was put in a position where I had to stop drinking because I was on antibiotics for a week because of a tooth abscess. Mm-hmm. So I had to stop drinking for a week to take the antibiotics and get them to work because of the amount of pain I was in. And it snowballed from there, really. So I stopped drinking for a week, and then I stopped drinking for a month. I thought, okay, it was difficult. Yeah. But then I was the combination of the healthier lifestyle and regular exercise. It meant that the pounds were falling off me, and I see the results very, very quickly. So, and then I started running as well in 2018. Mm-hmm. So it was 2018 when my love for running started. And then, as you can see, so I put myself into a lot better position. And I never really recognised that I had a dependency or a drink issue until probably 2 years later. And when I look back and when I reflect on it, and what I was actually doing, I think if I honestly look back, then I did have an issue. And I think, my wife supported me at the time, and Sharon, I think, always knew that I had an issue. Yeah. But whenever we tried to approach it, or whenever she tried to approach it, the barriers come up, and it's not a problem, it's not an issue. But she knew how to manage that. And I think she showed so much faith in me and knew that at some point that I would see what I was doing and I would come through this. Then, which once again just tells you what, sort of woman she is, and the amount of strength that she gives me. So, and this year is going to be 5 years without a drink. So when we get to October,
Hey, Kevin, that's amazing, because I've worked with people who have become sober, and like every day is a success. And to say 5 years, man, what a ability and mindset and discipline to do that, because it was part of your lifestyle for your whole life when you started drinking, right?
And I started drinking, I think, in my early teens I started, and I developed a serious habit in the between 20s and 30, and then continued that, and got to a point where I knew it was out of control. I knew what I was doing was wrong. I was, when you start drinking in secret, then that there's something not right here. Yeah. And you've got to do something, or you are going to, you're going to spiral out of control, and that's where I got to. Never spoken about that openly, John, to be honest. I'm quite happy to do that now, but I would have done that 4.5 years ago.
Well, I think knowing you as a brother now, and you feeling comfortable to tell your story, says a lot about the man you've become, because the transparency of the truth is what all of us need to do, because we can only make progress in our lives and others if we could just have an honest conversation about the past, because that's not the person you are anymore. Yeah. You're born again. And we'll talk about that soon with 40 days and 3 of 7. So actually, let's get into that right now, actually, Kevin. So you went through this transformation of not drinking in 2017, 18. Your brother passes and there's more gravity of the situation because of his health was bad. And it probably reinforced to you that, hey, you're on the right track. You're eating better, your diet's better, you're running, right? And then
You're exactly right. But
yeah,
you're exactly right, John. But I'd also just add, it also made me feel a little bit, it made me feel guilty as well.
that,
Because, it's difficult to deal with at the time.
yeah. And I don't know what it would be like to be in that situation. Because I just, Kevin, I can't even put words into how you probably felt ever since you had the aha moment of a transformation of your lifestyle, and then seeing while you're rising up, your brother's going the other way, and you felt guilty that you couldn't have made a change for him.
I never got the opportunity to try and, to try and get him to change as well. No.
Well, what I have learned is don't regret, because you can't look back in the past. My best advice for you moving forward is, there may be someone who you meet or you're friends with now who you could, be a mentor to and explain the situation that happened to your brother and how you don't want that to happen to them. And then you guide them, because you're a great leader now. You are a great man. I just can't say enough about you because of the growth that you've had. And now you have an opportunity to not only change one person's life, but many. And that's powerful, Kevin. It's very powerful. So why don't you talk about how you got into, you started running and you said 2018. And then after that, what transpired to what you were listening to, which led you to the 40 Days Deliverance program. So why don't you tell everyone that story?
Yeah. So 2018, I started the running. Prior to that, it had just been gym and spin classes and watching what I was eating. So, but running was something that I'd never really done, and I'd never been very, very good at it. And I wasn't very good at it when I started. So, I'm not really built for running, but I started running in 2018, 2019. It continued, to run, and did lots of miles, and then did my first marathon in 2019 at the end of the year in November. But it was obviously during this process, then, you start to listen to, I'm not one for listening to lots of music. I do listen to a bit of music, but I started, during this time, I started reading a lot more. And, to be honest, I'm not a great reader. I tend to listen. So it's using the podcasts. And initially it was one of the trainers at the gym who put me on to Rich Roll.
Yeah.
So Rich Roll was where the journey started, really, with podcasting and read his book. Yeah, was inspired by his story. Started listening to his podcast, which introduced me to some of the obviously his guests that he talks to. John Joseph is one that I was always drawn to.
Yeah.
A unique character. If you know John Joseph, he's unique character, I think, and still listen to John today. And it says a lot of good stuff with regards to his coaching and leadership style and his spiritual beliefs. I think it was really then, I think, just listening to a lot of John Joseph as well, and reading his story and reading about him, which got me thinking about the spiritual side of things. And as I said, my mum, became a Jehovah's Witness a bit later in life. I can't remember the exact age, but I think she was in her 30s, early 40s before she found God and become a Jehovah's Witness. And it led me towards it, and I started thinking about it a lot more and started to explore some different religions. And so I was looking at Hare Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita. And obviously I did look at the Bible as well, and Christianity, and to be honest, I was I was drawn a bit more towards, Hare Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita, and I stayed sort of in that area for about a year or so, but I kept getting drawn back to the Bible. I kept getting drawn back, and even though I suppose I was a bit resistant, I think I was a bit resistant to it, but also during that time as well, I discovered the 307 project and Chad Wright
Mm-hmm.
and Blake and Chili and started listening to the 307 project, which initially wasn't very Bible based, but it's become more so, I think, since.
Mm-hmm.
So I was I was interested in it from a running and ultra perspective, and Blake's and Chad's story. But then once again, I think it's just developed over time, and I just kept getting drawn back to the Bible. And then at one of the, I think it was 307, or I can't quite remember, John, to be quite honest, but I'm sure it is listening to that. Then I heard someone talking about John Gardiner and there's 40 days of deliverance, or I've seen a pop up. I've seen something somewhere, and when I see this, I think I looked at the program, and one thing it jumped out at me straight away was that, okay, this provides structure.
Mm-hmm.
And I love structure around what I do. That's I'm give me a marathon to plan and run, and train for, and I'll do that, and I'll be very, very disciplined, and I'll do that, and I'll do the miles that are necessary, and I'll do the eatings that's required. So put a structure, put a plan in place, and I will stick to it. And I looked at your program, and I see that, and I thought, yeah, okay, this looks, I think, this looks like a very good program. It's going to put me in and amongst. And the other thing I've been looking at as well during that time, was obviously looking at, and I was talking to, one of my close friends about it, and that was the Patreon aspect of 307 and joining that, because I wanted to get in and around people, like-minded people, and try and learn more about the Bible and Christianity, and develop that urge, whatever it was that I had, try to feed it, I think, and so I thought, and then so obviously I see there was the fellowship aspect of 40 days of deliverance, and I thought, okay, well, this is going to put me in there. It's going to put me in amongst other like-minded people, and I thought, yeah, let's go for it. So that's why I signed up for the 40 days of deliverance, and it's changed my life.
Wow. You know what, Kevin, when you reached out on Instagram to me, I looked through people's bios, and then I see you're from the UK, and I'm like, oh, you're already interesting off the bat to me, because I have friends, a friend from Canada, and then we had Vance from Canada who joined as well, but you were the first one across the big sea for me. So
yeah,
just getting to do a little bit of dialogue with you, and then when you joined, I always try to make time. That's one thing I like to do, is to make time I called you. I think we did a video call maybe that first week, and we had a good opportunity to build a relationship together. And one of the things, and you weren't the only one during 40 days, but there was other people too who were new to Christianity, was just how to pray. And my objective then was to build prayers on my podcast so that people could learn how to pray. Now, prayer is different for everybody, but one thing in the 40 Days Deliverance program is you pray morning, midday, and at night. And I wanted to make a prayer for each one of those times of the day. And I'll never forget that you posted a video about how you felt the Holy Spirit for really the first time in your life, listening to one of those prayers while you were running. And I tell you what, it was just doing this program for you alone was worth it all, Kevin. I'm going to be honest, because that's what I want people to experience, is the presence of the Holy Spirit in your life is such an exuberating, glorifying, embracing feeling. And I felt it this morning too when I was running, and the day before. And I always call upon the Holy Spirit as much as I can to feel that warm embrace from him. So why don't you tell everyone about that time that you felt the Holy Spirit's presence?
Yeah, no, it was well, yeah, obviously I'll never forget it. It was January the 13th. I was out on a very early morning run. It was still pitch black when I went out, and so yeah, head torch, chest torch, and I still run the trails at that time in the morning. So yeah, it's a bit slippery and a bit, well, dangerous, but yeah, we still do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was taking a route where I'd go through some trail and through some woods, and then it comes out into a big open area, which is like a grass park, grass open park. And as I've come out into this area, and as you said, John, I was listening to the morning prayer that you'd posted, and yeah, I think it lasts about 8 minutes, and I had it on repeat, and I was just listening to it and going through the morning prayer and that process. And as I come out into this open area, then, you know, I felt a presence. I felt a presence just around me. It was just felt it was on my right hand shoulder. And as you turn naturally and look that way, and as I did, I got this tingling feeling,
Yeah.
all the way down through my body, and yeah, it was a wow moment, and I didn't really know what it was at the time, to be honest. I just thought to myself, well, there's something. It felt like there was somebody there with me. And yeah, so, and then I just carried on with the run, and obviously I got back about half hour or so later, and obviously we post these things, or we post thoughts and feelings on the chat, and share with all of the other members of the group. And it was, and yeah, then I started getting the feedback, and then the dialogue going, and everyone coming back and commenting on what it was. And the other thing was, the other interesting thing was that I've got a daily devotional as well, which obviously I read, and there's one for every day of the year. So
Yeah.
it's one of them type of devotionals, and I hadn't read the sort of one devotional last 2 days in this version that I've got. So I tend to read it every other day. So I read the devotional, and then the passage, verse, and context, and the questions the second day. And then when I read this on the second day, the devotional was, the questions for reflection and application was all around: have you ever seen something that you knew was a clear sign from God? If so, what was it? If not, do you think that you have missed signals from God? Or do you think that God has not given you a sign? So that was the devotional, the day that this happened to me, about whether you've been touched by God, and have you missed signals.
Well, God's timing is perfect. And the one thing everyone needs to know is you just got to allow it to happen. So people are like, well, how come I never experienced the Holy Spirit? Well, you weren't in the right time in your life yet. Second of all, what you have to take action for this to happen too. Like you said, you joined this 40 days group, and this happened because you took a risk. You took a chance on doing a program. So my advice to everyone is this: if you want to get closer with God, then you're going to have to be around God-like men and women. I'm not saying you have to do 40 days. I'm just saying, like, you have to be around a group of God-fearing people who can direct you to Christ. And when I had to learn that myself, and the one thing that has worked for me is just waking up each morning and giving my first fruits to the Lord. And we have to all think about this. When you do that, when you allow the Lord to be in your life, you're honoring him beyond an unimaginable feat. Okay. And the reason why I say that is, it's like you being a father. Like my children, if my children came to my bedroom door every morning and woke me up and said, can you hold me? Can you read to me and talk to me? That's a blessing. Let's say your child never did that ever their whole life. And you had these, let's say you had just a couple kids and they never wanted to talk to you. They did their own thing. They left your house after after 18, and they were on their own. but they never gave you time or presence. How would you react as being a parent if your child came to your room or to your house and sat down at the dinner table and said, you know what, Dad, I'm sorry, I've not been present with you. I'm sorry, I've avoided you. And I want you to know I love you and I'm so thankful for you in my life. And I want to build that relationship with you. You as a father would be elated beyond belief. And know what you would do? You would pour into your child more than you ever have in your entire life, because you have that connection now, that relationship, that spark has begun. And the Father does that, but times infinity for us as humans. The door is always there to open up and meet him, but a lot of us don't, because of, well, the way in which we have lived before, which is for the world and just to do the grind and then just die, and no one really thinks about it, the gravity of your soul and life. So Kevin, for you, like, what a blessing it was for you to have this experience, and you are a blessing in my life, can still, by sending us daily devotionals a month. I think it's been a month after, almost a month now since 40 days is finished, and you continue to be a beacon of prayer and support to the group and our group chat. So kudos to you, and literally, Kevin, the way in which you have matured and witnessing that since January 2nd has been an honor to be a part of that, Kevin. It really has.
Oh, thank you, John. No, well, like I say, the 40 days, the program, the fellowship, everything that, I got from that, well, it was fantastic for me, I think. And also just one of the contacting people and reaching out to people who, contact people even on a daily basis who we don't normally speak to, I got in contact with some old friends through that. I've contacted a guy I hadn't seen for nearly 30 years, one of my best friends from, and we've got together since, and it's like we've never been apart,
Yeah.
and that's rekindled that friendship. And so it done so much for me. And the fellowship, I'll never forget that fellowship that we get, amongst, all of everybody within that group, had an effect on me, in different ways. And it really was, an honor to be a part of it. And if I can do anything moving forward, to continue that in some way, shape, or form with regards to developing my own faith and sharing the good news, sharing the word, then that's what I feel I want to do. I need to do now. I think I had this. I was thinking about it today, and I think the best way I can describe it is I had this thirst for knowledge. I didn't quite know what it was, but it was a thirst for faith, really.
Yeah.
I think the program has enabled me. It showed me what I need to do. How I need to structure it, how I need to approach it, and so I've still got this thirst. That's not gone away, but you've led me to the water, so to speak. But I need to keep going back. I've got to keep going back, or I'm going to, that thirst is going to come back. So I need to keep, quenching that thirst on a daily basis. And I think, and that's what I've learned, from going through this program. And and like I say, I just feel, I just feel like I've got a message to put out there. I think I've got a message to share, and and that's what I do. If I feel like I need to share it, or there's a message in there, or then I think I've always been like that to a certain degree, John, even before the 40 days program. But I enjoy doing it.
You know what I've learned is that, Jesus said, to Nicodemus, you have to be born again of spirit and in water. And you put it so masterfully about, being born again, which was coming to Christ and open to the faith. And then the water, the thirst of wisdom. And the wisdom comes from the Bible. And the more you get in the Bible, it's like going to the well and you're just coming up, and and obviously not physically, but spiritually. You gain more
Yeah.
access to what the prophets and Jesus and the disciples had all said when they were here on earth. And it was to glorify God because of his divine nature. The Lord wants the relationship. He just wants to love you and everybody, but you have to learn from, especially what Jesus said when he came here in the flesh. He was the word in flesh. And if we could just focus in on what he taught, he was the great master, the King of Kings, and relay that to information, and not in a forceful way, but just in a way of like, you know what, you feel like you're lost in this life. Here's my story. Your story is way better than mine, Kevin. Way better than mine. You went through more trials and tribulations I've never experienced. So that's why I'm saying today, your story will resonate with many people. And what you just did today is sharing the good news of what you learned in your life recently and how the impact it has had for that thirst, and how you need fellowship, and you need the word to continue to live a righteous life for yourself, your wife, and for others. So with that being said, you just got to continue on that path, and that I will, and other people in our group will be there for you. I'm going to be honest, I will be. I know many of them will be too for the rest of your life. And that's how the program's designed, to build those long-lasting relationships. And I told you too, to end on my note, is that I look forward for you to being a leader in 40 days in the coming years, maybe the rest of your life. You have become such a powerful individual that you have a gift to share your story, and not only your story, but your actions. You were one of the most consistent people, for the mind, body, and spirit during the program. And because of that, I told you were the Star Pupil Award because of your diligence and how you operate in life, and you're all in. And it was clear as day that you were all in. And because of that, the body of Christ needs you to show others how to get the job done and to bring them to the Lord.
Yeah, no, thanks, John. I appreciate your comments. And I would, it'd be a privilege and an honor to be involved with the program moving forward. So I would love to, and I'd look forward to it.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, I just really appreciate your time. You are a wonderful man, just a blessing in my life to witness what you've gone through and what you're going through still in such a positive light. You have hope kindled in your heart now, and you see the mission that you have been given now in life. And when a man or woman sees that, they have purpose. So I know that you will continue to be purpose driven and mission driven. And I'm just glad that we are able to do that together. So Kevin, any last parting words before we go?
No, just thank you to you, John, for paving the way, showing me the light, and being the support and the leader and mentor that you've been absolutely, fantastic. The program that you lead it in a wonderful way, and I appreciate everything you've done for me and the support that you've given and are still giving. So I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And Kevin, I know this podcast will live for as long as it's able to be on the airwaves, because it'll impact more people than we could ever imagine. And we'll really only know when we get to go to heaven and be like, hey, Kevin, that one podcast you did, and then being a leader in 40 days, and then other adventures you're going to do are going to lead people to Christ. And he's going to welcome you when you go to heaven with him. Christ embrace you and say, well done, my good and faithful servant. And that is the best line anybody could ever ask for when their soul goes to eternity. So Kevin, thank you. And everyone, this class is dismissed.